on TV, that obviously is a trigger, but that's a direct reminder, and that really annoys me. I want to sort of throw things at the TV that this person is still given a platform.
There are lots of really small things that still set me off. It can be seeing a particular kind of bedspread. It can be certain kinds of road. You know, just really small details that trigger the memory, and suddenly I'm back there feeling traumatized again.
It's more a sense of sadness and loss about what I lost as a result of the assault. So I'm 38 now, and so a lot of my friends are, you know, married and have kids, and they've bought property and all these things. And like, I'm not at that point in my life yet, because my whole life got derailed by this one kind of event, and I've spent the rest of my life trying to get back onto that track.
I find myself, when I'm walking in the streets alone at night, I find myself getting very frightened about, you know, what if someone were to come and attack me? And so I find myself armouring physically against that.
Being alone in places at night, walking home from nights out, I don't necessarily feel safe, even if I'm with my friends.
And I go through these scenarios in my mind. I would yell and I would say this and I would do that. So I'm constantly in this kind of state of hyper-awareness and kind of aggression. And I don't want to spend my life like that. I want to be able to relax, and I want to be able to walk around the streets without that kind of threat.
Even though it's not what happened to me, I always think, what would happen if something happened right now? And if I was attacked and I couldn't do anything about it.
And also then my mind goes to the scenario of what would happen if I weren't able to defend myself. And that's really frightening. And as far as I know, this is something that a lot of women live with, and it's something which, you know, I wish the streets were much safer. I wish there wasn't a need to feel like that.
It's sad that I try not to put myself in situations necessarily more. So I would say that I definitely don't go out as much as I used to. During my final year of university, I rarely went out, and that was more due to fear of being alone at night rather than because I was working really hard.
You get to learn the specific triggers that are going to put you back there, and sometimes you can avoid them, sometimes you have to take that deep breath and just push through them bit by bit by bit. It's a long road, and I'm still not all the way there. Getting there, I think.
Yeah, so going back even to trauma and the gateways that they come through, we have different gates in our body. We have our eye gates, okay, so stuff that enter our eyes. We have our ear gates, stuff that enter our ears. Probably guess the rest. And these are all main things where trauma can enter through. So it can be through what you see, it can be through what you hear, it can be through like molestation or any sexual abuse or anything like that. There's many things where trauma can enter through. And that's why the scriptures always tell us to put on a full armor of God, because when you have the full armor, it covers all of those areas, if that makes sense. All of those areas are protected. And yeah, it's so important to, obviously, we can't always control what we see, what we hear, and what people do to us, but these are the areas where we have to be so careful with protecting physical as well as spiritual. And you find that, like, even the enemy just always looking for opportunities. Like, see the TV, whatever we watch, we see all of this madness on TV. We have, I know they say movies and even games that ain't got a whole lot to do with violence and stuff like that, but it definitely contributes towards it, because if you're always seeing people dying in films or in games, then it's gonna have a subconscious effect on you, as I said, trauma and stuff affects people differently. If someone has a traumatic experience, they've seen someone get killed or they've seen a lot of murder and they're playing murderous games, then it may influence them to display aggressive or impulsive behaviour.
It's almost, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's almost like when we was talking about the desensitization.
Yeah, yeah.
So they put it in the movies and, you know, on TV and stuff and in the music, and then before you know it, it's a minor, it's nothing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Definitely. Definitely, like, and you have so many people going out to see all these violent horror films, like all the, like, different saws and different things. These horror films are just getting worse and worse and more gruesome and grotesque, and people are like, oh, that wasn't as scary as the last one, and like, these are horrific things they're seeing on screen, but it's not affecting them as much, and getting a thrill out of seeing people murdered and killed and stuff like that, and paranormal activity.
And it's a conditioning again.
Yeah.
Like you said, it gets progressively worse
Yeah.
as time goes on. So what was a horror movie 10 years ago is not looked at as a horror movie now.
It's kind of looked at as like a joke
like
or a gimmick.
some comedy.
Yeah. And so you see that through what we see as well from the movies, and that then you have what you hear, you have music that people listen to, glorifying drugs, glorifying just using women as objects, glorifying even abuse, glorifying materialism, all of these things. And if you're hearing that on a daily basis, you're more likely going to be caught up with what they're doing, and it's going to condition your mindset to do these things. Even going back to what you see how there's been such a rise of pornography and pornography addiction and stuff in this age, and it's like you see so many as children are coming across these sites more often because it's so available. You just click one button and they're not even watching anything like that, and an ad will come up and it will just come up, so they don't even have a choice, and so that's automatically a traumatic experience, and then when they get involved with watching it, it may cause them to look and treat women how they're not meant to be treated, and treating women like sex objects and stuff, and then you have women trying to behave like the women in the movies that they're watching because that's what men are expecting. And if girls are like, okay, if this is how men want me, then this is how I need to behave and this is how I need to act. And it's like kind of like a circle of, and then so many insecure girls are behaving that way too, thinking that they will be loved if they behave this way, and they'll get attention if they behave this way, and you got, as I mentioned, the ears, what you're listening to, what you're hearing, because our ears are very important. Even the scripture says that faith comes by hearing, and by hearing the word of God. So hearing is very, very important and very key. And then of course you've got people that are just going around just having sex with any and everybody, and as well as there is sexual transmitted diseases. So you say there's spiritual transmitted demons. So or sexually transmitted demons, where people are taking on whatever is on that other person.
Oh, just don't even get me started. Why? Why?
Go on.
No, I'm not even gonna start. I'm not.
People are just harboring, taking up different spirits and taking up characteristics of people, and it's just like they've then opened themselves up to take on whatever that person has, and then you're transmitting it to the next person, and then they're transmitting it to the next person until they're just a broken wreck, and they realize that they've just abused their body so much that they even just look different because they've just given their youth away, they've just given everything away. Especially at a young age, and that causes a lot of traumatic reactions, even in that sense. And you have people. There's so many different things, even just the sexual abuse can cause to people, or for people, like personality split disorder, not knowing who they are, not knowing, even not knowing their sexuality, who they are, and not being able to relate, because a lot of it, maybe even girls may not be able to relate to a lot of men, be afraid of men. A lot of guys would not be able to relate to men as they should. And so there's many different reasons as to, or many different effects of these type of traumas. And it's so important to keep all these things into account. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, basically, like, with everything we've spoken about as well, I feel like there's definitely an agenda to split up the conventional structure of the home.
Yeah.
So, obviously you have husband and wife, then children. And society, the way it's going, it's almost like they've created other ways of how you procreate life. And that has just messed up a lot of people.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So I say that because I actually know a few people that are going to the extremes to have children, because they either are in same-sex relationships, or they just don't want to physically engage with intercourse with a man. And, you know, these people have gone through IVF and paid thousands and thousands of pounds to get inserted with sperm. Sorry to say that. Well, in one case, I'm obviously not mentioning who or what, but there's a case where there's this lady and she's not in a relationship, but she has gone through the process of taking sperm donor to get pregnant, and she has a beautiful little girl, she's 3 years old now. But the process to have her was very stressful. And we had loads of conversations, and she was paying so much money for this treatment to then bear a child. And I could see the stresses that she couldn't cope with, like normal everyday to-day life, because it was something that was playing on her mind quite a bit of the time. Having emotional breakdowns and just feeling like you can't find the right man because that her past relationship was a bad one, and he was mentally abusive to her, and it kind of chipped away at her self-worth and how she sees herself, and to the point where she's extremely like, I don't want anyone, I don't want a female, I don't want a male, I don't want nothing, I just want a child. But how are you getting that child? So she's gone through these it's extreme to me to have a child. So there's that case, and she went through extensive stress, because again, when we read about the trauma, it was saying, you know, pressures and extensive stress. And there's another case where, again, because this person went through a bad relationship with a guy, she now only wants females, and she's in a relationship with a female, and there's talks of saving up deposit for a house and also a child, and it's putting stress on their relationship at the moment. And you know, discussions about who's going to carry the child, like who's going to take time off work, who's going to go back into work. So it's like, I think one of them is actually going to carry the child, but the person that has made that decision, she's very active, like her job is a firewoman and very fit and stuff like that. So she wants to have that experience of carrying the child, but then she doesn't want to take